Okay, wow. So I look horrible. But I and this thing just doesn't stay anymore. I haven't made a video in at least 6 months. It's been a really long time. And today, and I had been kind of thinking about it a little bit, because I just went back through my old YouTube videos, and it's just kind of cool to like look at my own things. So this is like good like personal notes. It's sort of hard to like phrase because it is public, even though I don't care if people watch it. So it's hard to like talk. So if I'm talking to somebody else and you're just kind of chiming in, like the four or five, six people that actually looked at my video that I don't know, um, you know, again, this is more like my own personal like record, and it's just easiest for me to do it through the YouTube just because of the accessibility. It just is. But last year I started making videos over my progress of running, and sort of like always would have like what do you call it, a theme or I would set goals and I would explain why it was important, and I would go into like you know just how I felt and where I was. And I think I got up to like running like I ran a half marathon 4 days in a 7 day period, and they were back to back. I ran a marathon, a half marathon, and then the next day I ran a half marathon. Then I took a day break, and then I did two half marathons the two following days. So, also, I had this really horrible stand, and just stuff kind of started irritating me. I got into the holidays and started cleaning up, and today just seemed like a good day. And I've been I didn't run. Actually, I really let myself down with how little I ran. But I might have balanced it out with how much that I lifted, because last year was the first year that I did both weight training and running. And I didn't really do real heavy lifting, but I did just enough to sort of like balance out my quite to create a balance in my muscle structure. From running so much, you just have some muscles that overdevelop compared to others. And so I just really kind of made a very concerted effort to make sure that I was staying healthy overall. And the year before that, I basically did nothing but run, and it wasn't really running. It was sort of slow jogging as far as I could. And it was just hell. And last year, I took a step back from putting myself through hell. And I mean, the 2 years ago, I was running till I past failure. I would get to the point where not only could I not run, I would have to take breaks. My legs, I would just, I basically would just destroy my body. It was just a horrible way of going. And last year, I really paced myself. Oh yeah, that was a huge thing. One of my big lessons, quote unquote, was pacing. And this year, I've kind of gone the opposite way of running fast and just building on how long I can go at running a pretty quick pace, almost to the point of sprinting. But obviously, I'm still slow. I'm not like professional or anything. And so what I did do is that I've been running on the treadmill because it's been freezing, and a day I wanted to run, and I thought it was going to be warm because they told me it was going to be warm, but it still looks like there's ice on the ground, even though it's like 40 degrees. So one thing I am trying to do is avoid injury, and I have definitely fallen enough times just without ice to just kind of give myself a day. And giving myself another day, I've been, again, going back to it, I've been lifting pretty heavy to my legs, heavier than I have in decades, which is well, a long time. But I have noticed that overall, from my running, and I did keep up with it pretty decent. I mean, I was not no long distance, but I was keeping a pretty quick pace for a few miles, anywhere between no less than 2.5 miles, which is still a lot for most people. But I was doing anywhere from 2.5 miles, really basically no higher than 7.5, sometimes 8 miles. I think I hit 9 once just because I felt like it. And that's all on a treadmill, so way easier, all flat, no issues. And past couple of weeks, it's gotten a little warmer again. I've been outside. Now, I remember every year that when it's cold, it's super hard on your joints. And running outside compared to treadmill is just hard in general. The stand is just absolutely horrible. So I haven't quite developed like my game plan for how I'm going to tackle everything, but I think I'm going to go into a mixture of long runs and sprinting, where last year that's where I was going to go last year. And I ended up, I swear, this is the worst stand ever. It's just horrible. I'm sorry. I have to get something new. So I was running last year. I wanted to do both sprints and long distance, but I just couldn't deal with it ended up not working out. I wasn't prepared for it, really. I don't think I was ready for anything faster than the pace I was going at. So I think this year I am ready, and that says a lot, to be honest. Another thing is that because I have been, recording this, it's kind of interesting to go back and see my videos, but it's that I know that I lost a lot of my endurance, but my speed has gotten better because I've been doing a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of kind of cardio intensive weight training. I don't know how to explain it, but I've been doing compound lifts. So not just sitting there doing nothing. I'll break a sweat and really push myself pretty hard. And that being said, is that, also I think taking a break really let my legs heal completely, where I don't have any aches throughout any part of my knees or my ankles or I don't really have any issues anymore, especially in my muscles. I have no muscular issue right now where I don't have one that's cramped or sore or anything. I'm pretty fresh. So hopeful. But my big thing is that I also started lifting, and I set a goal because I wanted to be stronger. Honestly, just because I'm tired of being the weaker guy in the gym, and I'm there all the time. So it just kind of felt weird. But also because I feel like I know what it's like to have extra strength. And sometimes just with biking, because it's not just running, and swimming too, having upper body strength is also pretty important. And so I'm not going anything extreme. Actually, I'm just going to, body weight, which, for gym, in my opinion, and classical thinking of gym etiquette, or not gym etiquette, but gym gym standard is a good way of putting it, is being able to at least bench your weight. Repping your weight is definitely good, but being able to bench your weight is sort of it's not really even a benchmark. It's almost like a requirement. If you are a gym goer and you don't really have any idea of what you really want to do, the number one thing is being able to bench your body weight. And obviously bench doesn't translate real well into the real world, but it does. And the reason why I think it does is because when you're riding your bike, or all day long, you're pushing and pulling constantly. You're picking things up that are heavy and putting them down. The bench press really actually is overall a really good upper body total upper body workout. It develops your shoulders, your back, your chest, your tris. If you're doing it, properly, you should be spreading a lot of the load across your body. But it's also just like the motion is the same as if you ride a bike, and being able to hold the difference between being able to hold 140 pounds up or push 140 pounds versus like 240 pounds is going to translate quite. It just makes the whole riding a bike, it makes things easier. And building up properly, quote unquote properly, where you're like, you're doing 10 reps and you're doing not too much weight, not a lot of weight. That's all good and dandy, but like if you really want to push yourself, you really gotta and it's dangerous, but that's the whole point, is that like in any sport and anything that you're doing, is that if you're not really pushing it, you're not gonna see any results, like quick results, and obviously it's all about like going slow and not quick results. Like in today's world, you don't want to hurt anybody, you don't want to give advice that hurts anybody. But the truth is that sometimes you really got to push yourself in order to get those results. And ever, you may never get there by doing a lightweight, however many reps you can do. Sometimes to get there, you need to push some heavier weight, just like long distance. Like you're not going to get to having more cardio if you're just doing 2 miles, but you're just running it faster and faster and faster. That doesn't build your cardio. That just builds your immediate, it builds your cardio over that. But like if you're talking like 20s, a marathon, or even just 10 miles, is that you're going to get more benefit of pushing to get out to that 10 miles. Now, the whole thing is that you're not going to be able to do that. And sometimes, like I guess this all ties into last year, is that where I was suggesting is that if you can't go, whatever your goal distance is that I would run as much as you can and walk the rest of the way, but just do it and get it done. And that's to failure, and that isn't necessarily like safe. That's not like the best advice, because a lot of stuff, if you're pushing for 10 miles, a lot of things can happen. You can have, serious issues with, your internal organs, like your kidneys, like, even your lungs to some degree, because you are just pushing your body and your blood oxygen count, and like, just like your every single thing in your body is just going to be pushed and twisted and pulled in all different directions. And even though it's not like strenuous walking, but if you've been running for 5 miles and you're trying to walk 5 more, is that it can become, it is dangerous, and it can become difficult. But if you do it and you at least like know that you have like, like water, and there's people around, and there's like, you have like a plan just in case like some unforeseen like major issue happens, and you're sort of taking care and have already planned how to get through it, which is why I'm going to just go back and put in quotations, is that like, you'd be surprised that you probably could, if you can't run like how I started. Maybe instead of telling you, I'll tell you how I was, is that I couldn't even run a mile. So my goal it started with 1 mile. And what would happen was I'll go out and run, and I would probably get like 50 yards and have to walk. Now I had like back problems and all that. I'm not going to go into that, but I would have to walk, after 50 yards, and then I have to walk the rest of the mile. And it would take me, 20, 25 minutes just to do 1 mile. But I really quickly, I mean, it only took me probably 2, 3 weeks to build up to a full mile. And once I built up that full mile, then my goals changed and I was going for 5. Well, actually, I think I was going for 3 miles was my next, 2 or 3 miles. And then and the same thing would happen as I'd run, maybe get a little bit further than a mile and have to walk the rest. And then what happened 2 years ago in my hell is that I knew that I could go pretty decently far, but I wanted to see how far I would go. And I would push myself to where like I would basically be collapsed by the time I would get back. I do not suggest doing that. It didn't, I mean, it did build me up to high mileage really quickly. Like they will say like add like a mile every month or a week or something. I mean, I was adding like 5 miles every couple days to the point where I think my longest was like 18, or well, my longest was like 20 plus miles, like 22 miles, something ridiculous. And in that amount of time, I legitimately like started blacking out. I had to fall. Wasn't taking water. I was just doing it just purely on just effort, like motivation, like self-motivating things. And it was horrible, and it was hell, and it would take me all day. Sometimes it would take me like legitimately 10 hours to get through whatever goal I had set for myself. But it worked. And not only did I get better, with my miles, is that I got better at preparing for the worst case scenario. I got better at taking the right amount of water, making sure that I would take breaks in between. I had an approximation about how far I could run before I needed to walk. And then how long I could, how much further walking would get me to where I could possibly run again if I would eat more food. And then that all like kind of went into what I never understood about fitness, because I played sports, and fitness and sports are like two different things. Is it typically, if you are like, fitness is to me what you go do, and sports is like something that like you're doing with other people. Like it's like an event. It's not like you go outside and play sport. Like you can go practice, but you don't play. But like when you're doing fitness and aerobics and that type of stuff, you're going out there and it's you. There's no coach, there is no trainer, there is no rules, there's no time limit. Like you could go out there and walk off forever. And that's just, if that's your goal, that's your goal. Whereas with sports, like you have, you go and the game isn't going to be more than 120, an hour and a half, and you probably not going to play the whole time. And you have water on the bench, you got food on the bench, you have no problem. So come from being that type of athlete, like a team sport athlete, I always thought people were just stupid and crazy and just weird when they were talking about calorie counts and like, eating the right way and all this stuff, because in part I was given all of what I needed and I was monitored and, I was pushed and made sure. I always had, you would even have like an EMT there and, but you, not only that, you would just have like teammates and people around you that would like be like, you don't look very good, or like, be able to like also pace you or be there for you. Whereas with fitness, how it's been for me is that part of it was that I've been going out there and I was like, not actually thinking that I was going to be amazing. I knew that I could, from my sport, having a history of being sort of athletic, is that I knew that I could go out and push myself to a certain degree. But I didn't, I sort of would just push further than, I would push as far as I could go, because that's just, like if you want to practice free throws, you do as many as you can. So my whole thing, my ideas, my perception of it all just changed, because I realized that calorie counting isn't just for like losing weight. It can be for being able to maintain weight in the very short term, where like you're not going to be able to run, like if you're training to run, you're going for like 10-mile runs that I learned that I basically will burn about 1,000 calories or more or less, depending on my intensity of running, in an hour. And if you're running for 2-3 hours, that's 2,000-3,000 calories. So you don't even have to count calories. You're just eating as many as you can get. But then it also comes down to, and see, now I'm just rambling. I know that I won't even listen to myself to this point, but just in case I do way down the line, is that I also started like being able to tell you like the weight of water, which is really funny because everybody at the gym always weighs themselves because they want to know how much they weigh. And I would weigh myself before I would go for a run and then when I would come back. So I know how much water, weight, like not how much water. I didn't actually know the literage. I just knew my weight. Like I drank, a gallon of water or a pound of water, or I weighed this amount and then I drank however much water. And when I got done, I still only weighed this. And it wasn't unheard of for me to lose almost 10 pounds in a hour and a half run, or a 2-hour run, or a 5-hour run, or an 8-hour run. I mean, depending on all the different things. And then going into it is that you would learn about preparing for the environment and external things that you can't control, like how hot it is. And then you get into equipment, like what type of shoe to wear and what type of time. And, if you're going out for an 8-hour run, you got to, prepare for the weather to change because it's going to change in that amount of time. So going back, I mean, this is obviously just like an overview of all of it, you realize is that there's different things that you can do to make it easier and harder. And you just have to do it. And you can listen to people all day long, and some of it you're just going to think is crazy. Like I always thought there's just things that are crazy. And there's other things that you'll understand and sort of pick up on. And then you may get desperate and just like have to listen to somebody about anything that will maybe give you just like a little bit of edge so you don't feel like a pathetic piece of garbage because you can't do whatever some task that you wanted to do. And so like why I'm putting this out there is because even more so for myself is just because it becomes such a huge it has become like when you're playing sports, it's like all of the thinking is done by the coach, all of the preparations is done by the trainer. Like your parents or friends would, make sure that you're fed. Like it just was like a community where you didn't have to do absolutely everything. But doing absolutely everything, it becomes a monumental task in which you really can't remember. And all of this started, and my video started because even when I would take notes, is that my notes would become so in depth that it became hard to even understand how I was feeling, because not only is it about the black and white on the paper, it's about your emotion, about how you're feeling. And you can tell a lot by how you can tell that you're feeling, but in a video, at least I can explain how I'm feeling. So this is like the next step in the whole process of, I guess it's recording it all, but it helps. So like I look at this not just for interest, but like also because there's times where I need to go back and re-examine what I had done and how it made me feel and where I was, because it's easier than just being stupid over and over. And I mean, I guess I don't necessarily have to, but it definitely has helped. And it also is interesting for sure. So anyway, like I haven't really set my goals for this year. I really just want to sort of get back into making a video and get back into talking to myself and whoever really even cares. So I just like have something to stand on. And like I remember, because part of getting back out there is that a lot of times you can get down because you forget how far you've come and all that went into it. And sometimes you just got to remind yourself of all the different little things that it took for you to get all the way back to the beginning, which is kind of weird that I call it in the beginning, because people that live in warm weather probably don't even understand what it's like to like go through 4 seasons and like almost be forced to take a break because you can't run in, you know, a foot of snow. I mean, I guess you could, but I don't think it, I wouldn't, I don't around here. And so you always sort of, when spring comes and summer comes, it's always just almost like starting over again, which is good because, you know, I do different training in the winter. Now, maybe I'll just end on that, is that this past winter I did a lot of weight training. I mean, I was actually really diligent with my weight training. I did, you know, I did moderate to light cardio, but light to moderate cardio is over an hour every, you know, time that I would go to the gym. So that, because it's all perspective, is that like when I go, my lightest warm up is most people is like is generally like way longer than most people's like hardest cardio session. And then when I do some real cardio, it's not very unusual to see, like, I mean, people come and leave the gym completely before I even am, you know, even halfway through. And I'm not bragging. I'm not saying that, like, these people are people that look better than me, that possibly in better shape than me, but I just am more focused on, you know, running and cardio and that aspect than, you know, having the 6-pack abs and, you know, the beach body. I mean, obviously I want that too, because, you know, who doesn't? But just saying is that my focus has been a little bit different. And up until like basically the past couple of months, I was sort of like the pathetic little guy at the gym that went there all the time, seeing absolutely no results, and I couldn't barely lift anything. And historically, when I used to play sports, I was as strong as I am now and much stronger than I used to be. So it's all kind of a roundabout. It's all roundabout. It's all come back to, you know, now I'm bigger, stronger, and faster. I'm more healed up. I have a better plan, a better understanding. I'm already basically ready to go, and it's all about just sort of remembering what I need to do and how to do it, and setting goals that I can follow. And you don't really have to set goals, and you don't really have to take it as in depth, like scientifically, as me. It's just that when it was 2 and 3 miles, especially when it was 1 mile, it's like, just go do it. When it was 2 and 3 miles, it's like, man, no problem. When it came to like, even like 5, 6, 7 miles, I don't even really remember writing about it. I just remember being like, it sucked or it was okay. But when you're really getting up into, I would say, double digits of miles, like when you're getting into the 9, 10, 11, 12, and especially when you're getting past that. And mind you, if you're also doing workouts and other stuff, like I was riding my bike, swimming, and doing this, if you're doing all of it, is that setting a goal will make sure that you because you're going to get hurt, and you're also going to have a lot of other issues. It'll just like you can build faith in yourself, because you know that you set this goal because you felt a certain way about all the stuff you've already like gotten hurt over, or, you know, whatever. And I'm just going to end on this real quick, is that like sometimes it's about running form, and I've talked about the different things, but I guess a good example of why just setting a goal is because a lot of times you get out there and you just want to push as hard as you can, and you kind of lose sight, or you get tired, or something distracts you, and you don't realize that you're not performing properly. And some of the stupid stuff where I got hurt was like tripping, because I could run, but I just wasn't picking my feet up because I had pushed like, you know, 4 or 5 miles further than I really should, but not just 4 or 5 miles than I should, but 4 or 5 miles on this day, and then yesterday I pushed more than I should have, and then the day before I pushed more than I should have, and then I pushed more than I should have. But I learned not to push too hard comparative to before all that, because I started writing down notes and I started taking into consideration all the different things that were happening. So really it's just sort of like, you can get into it as much as you want, but I guess if you're just starting out, don't listen to all this. This might be interesting for some people that are like, oh my God, like I didn't realize that, it becomes so in depth. But for the people that are like scared of it, is that you don't have to do it this way. It's just that I suggest, and I think that anybody that really is pushing in one area, no matter what it is sort of like thinking about it at least. And so I really suggest that, like, if somebody's watching this, and even me, is that if you're like planning on starting out again, it's just go do it, because at the beginning it's not that big a deal. It's just I'm starting at a point where I know that I can still pretty easily run 8 to 9, 10 miles. And I know that I can push pretty close to the 15-mile range. And that's on the low end. I probably can. I'm really interested to see how far I can. I don't know how far I can. I just know that I can go 8 or 9 miles because I've done that. But that's starting, where I think last year I was only at like, 4 or 5 or 6 miles was my starting point of last year. Now I think my starting point is about 8 or 9 miles, which is, it's also another thing is that it can be, when you're getting into the miles, is that every year that when you're at like 9 miles, it's tacking on 1 more mile is a greater percentage than if you're at 1 mile tacking on another 1 mile. Like, it's just, there's way more that goes into it. And so my big thing is keeping healthy, staying healthy, getting healthier, and being even less injury prone last year than I was the year prior to that. And part of that is taking care of my insides and my outsides, not just tripping and falling, but making sure that I don't starve my body too quick, too fast, that I keep enough food in me so I don't hit like the wall, which I talked about, and I don't have any like sort of like, because now that I'm going on years of training, is that I don't want any compounding issues to be happening because of dehydration or lack of nutrition or just joint issues, just everything. I don't want it to be some sort of issue that I ignore to get to my end result. And that's the whole point that I keep saying about fitness, is that it's not about what everybody else is doing. It's about what you want to do, and then being able to apply that to more and more things. And you can't do that if you're hurt. So anyway, I'm going to end this video now, because every time I say just one more thing, it's like 2-3 more minutes. So I just think that was a much too long, but a good start of a video. Again, just kind of a recap of where I was and just what I'm kind of going to be doing. All right, well, I'll talk to you later.